You want to cry, you want to be like, oh my God, mommy, but you can't. Somebody hit her car while I was inside the car. I was the smallest person in the room. You don't have a moment to sit and panic. Those are shitty practices that we completely avoid because we have our technology. We aren't just building a law firm. And I think that day I learned what courage means and what it is. It's a miracle sometimes that I'm still here. Sometimes you have to be your own leader and be your own ladder. So put in the computer and that injury equals a number. That's disrespectful to our clients. Every injury counts.
The law firm of the future is a tech firm.
Yes, she no longer had to be me. Around 7 years old, I went into a lawyer's office. Imagine sitting in a room with what I call American-speaking lawyers and just having to learn yourself the law at that moment. So I moved out at 17. It was a lack of shelter and a lack of resources.
Deep in the mountains?
Well, yeah, there is no running water. It's a completely different environment. He wasn't seen as a person because of his lack of English. I was sleeping in the van and I just remember being woken up by like yelling and screaming. It was my mother because she had just realized that somebody hit her car while I was inside the car. I had to translate for the police and translate for the ambulance. As a 7-year-old, you want to cry. You want to be like, oh my God, mommy, but you can't because you have to stand up and you have to tell your mom, okay, mom, this is what we have to do next because these people are talking to me in English and I have to process it in my head and tell you in Spanish so you know what to do for us next. I'm the last generation that is translating for our parents when it comes to the law.
Hi, Jocy.
Hi, Damien.
Thanks for sitting down to get us some one-on-one questions with you.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Cool, let's just jump into it. So, lawyer, tech entrepreneur, voice for the democratic socialist movement fighting for the disenfranchised. So you are a product of Washington Heights and Sunset Park?
Yes, that's right, Brooklyn.
The daughter of Dominican immigrants who taught you that dreaming is a risk worth taking. You were also, I think I remember, a child translator, like navigating the system at, what, 7 years old?
Yeah, so around 7 years old, I went into a lawyer's office with my mom. It was very intimidating. So imagine sitting in a room with what I call American-speaking lawyers and just having to learn yourself the law at that moment, having to explain to your mother the importance of medical treatment, the process of a personal injury case. And Spanish is my first language, but somehow I was learning the language of law.
At the same time?
At the same time, as I was trying to translate it to my mother, yeah.
A big feat for a 7-year-old. So I'd like to go back a bit.
Okay.
Let's start at the moment that feels almost unthinkable for a child. When most 7-year-olds are playing outside, you were sitting in a law firm, translating giant legal words for your mom. What did that room feel like?
I was the smallest person in the room. It was intimidating. But, you know, as a first generation, it's something that I think every first generation goes through because your parents bring you here. You learn the language before they do. It's a barrier we're trying to break.
So another thing that I heard was that there was another incident around that same age involving your mom's job. She worked nights and sometimes you and your siblings would sleep in her van while she worked. And correct me if I'm wrong, one night an alleged drunk driver hit the van and drove off?
It was a crazy night. Wow. I remember vividly, I was very young and my mother did work nights. So she would have to bring us sometimes with her to work. And this one night I was sleeping in the van and I just remember being woken up by yelling and screaming. And it was my mother because she had just realized that somebody hit my car. Somebody hit her car while I was inside the car. I had to, again, translate for the police and translate for the ambulance and translate for the EMTs and the doctors because we ended up going to the emergency room that night. I think the saddest part of it is that she was doing a immigration process for my siblings. I'm an American citizen because I was born here, but they aren't. And so she didn't know at the time, and maybe she doesn't even know now, that immigration and personal injury are two completely different things. So this guy who hit me allegedly while he was drinking and driving got away with it because she didn't know her rights.
And you're dealing with all of this as a 7-year-old, but also being a part of the accident as well.
Yeah, and it's like, as a 7-year-old, you want to cry. You want to be like, oh my God, mommy, but you can't because you have to stand up and you have to tell your mom, okay, mom, this is what we have to do next because these people are talking to me in English and I have to process it in my head and tell you in Spanish so you know what to do for us next.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And to continue on a tiny bit of a trauma train, but I promise you there's a thought process to this.
Okay, you sure?
Yeah, I promise. I heard about another incident.
Okay.
where you were trapped in an elevator when you were, I think, almost the same age?
Yeah, a little bit after that. Yeah.
What was that like?
Scary. But again, you don't have a moment to sit and panic. We were stuck in an elevator, who knows how long. It felt like maybe days, hours. It's probably just hours or minutes. And we were trying to get out. She had to push me out and through the gap of the elevator because we were stuck in there, and she was asking for help and pushing the button, and it wasn't working. And I think that day I learned what courage means and what it is, the risk that you have to take to get where you want to be. I needed to get out, so I had to take that risk and get out of that elevator. It's crazy.
It sounds like you, from what I'm gathering, it's you've learned about courage from your mother, but also learned about it through the shared experience that you had as well, going through all these things. So moving past the early childhood years, you spent your summers in Mocha, in DR.
Yes.
You lived with your aunt and your family deep in the mountains. No running water, electricity, only at night. How does that compare to New York?
Well, yeah, there is no running water. So yeah, okay, there's electricity because we watch our novelas at night, okay? If you know anything about your novelas, you can't miss it, even if it's just the ending, because it's so important, La Usurpadora. But it's a completely different environment. There you have your neighbors. Like, we let our kids out running out because we know that the neighbors are watching. Oh, mira, chequea que está bien, and that's it, you know? From the colmado to a lechero, everyone knows where you are. You don't have to let them know. So when you leave school, somebody's watching to make sure you get home. When you get home, even if your parents aren't there, the neighbors are watching to make sure you get home. I guess my parents could have stayed in that and made sure that they had somebody watching over us, but they realized that maybe coming to the US was going to be the change that we needed for us to progress and get out of the dirt roads and have stable electricity and Wi-Fi and internet all the time, even though it's not important. But it's a struggle that they had to go through in order for us to be where we are today.
I still want to stay in the past for right now, but that kind of makes you feel like that same mentality of having the neighborhood watch out for you or someone in your community watching out for you. That's kind of what I always hear in the office. It's kind of your driving force, even today.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we're always watching out for our clients. They're our community. That community that I see in Mocha is what I picture for pain injury law.
So moving a bit slowly but surely throughout your past, but we're getting to the present, I promise.
Okay.
In your teenage years, you were raised mostly by your godmother, right?
Yes, mi madrina.
You've spoken about her home being a sanctuary, like the surfing couch.
Well, her couch is a sanctuary for anybody that comes through the door. I always say that when you walk into her house, the rice grows. It's something that you'll hear me say all the time. But mi madrina, she is everybody's shoulder to cry on. You walk into her house, you know that you're going to leave with a belly full and stress off your shoulders with a solution in your pocket. She listened. She made you warm. She gave you a home.
So moving on, right along, but slowly but surely, we're getting to the present time. But first, I'm still trying to understand these early years. So we all know Jocy as she sits here now,
Yeah.
as a lawyer. And people know and see this lawyer title now, but you had to fight for every inch of that. You moved out of your godmother's house at 17, was it?
Yeah, it was hard. It's a miracle sometimes that I'm still here. So I moved out at 17 with a boy. I don't recommend it. Don't do it. Have a daughter. Don't do it. If you're listening to me, don't do it. I ended up in a toxic relationship trying to survive. And then it was a lack of shelter and a lack of resources. I moved out and I tried to rely on my father after that. Unfortunately, he didn't come through as I thought he would. So again, lack of shelter. So then I started to work so I can pay my way through school. And then I was able to get my associates so I can pay my way through school again. And sometimes you have to be your own leader and be your own ladder so you can get to where you want to be. You set goals for yourself, and whether you have food in your plate or shelter over your head, you have to meet your goals.
So after then, you chose personal injury law, and specifically because it was of your father's experience. I think you told me that he worked construction, and he was like a genius at math.
Yeah, don't ever play dominoes with that guy. You will walk out crying. He doesn't know any English at all. I mean, this guy's been in this country for who knows how many years, but he's really good at math. He was in a construction accident. At the time, I knew nothing about personal injury. I knew nothing about construction or labor law or workers' compensation or Social Security. But I know now that he wasn't seen as a person because of his lack of English and his lack of the language of the law. He wasn't treated as an individual. and it's also something that we try to embody. If I'm going to treat you like you're my dad sitting across the room from me, I'm going to make sure that every type of case that I can open and any sort of resource or benefit that I can get for you, I will. So yes, my dad is the reason. I don't know if he knows that. He's the reason why personal injury is our field today.
Okay, so you were doing some tech-ish stuff for the law firm at the time, but you, correct me if I'm wrong, you were doing website building and coding, but you didn't start until you're about 21. How did that shift happen, and like when did it happen?
Yeah, so the law firm was that they were trying to speed up the processes, right, with technology and stuff like that. So I was able to test their software and implement their software when I was in that firm. And then I also did a website for a catering company, which showed me a lot about the internals of technology and data and the processes. And that's when my light bulb moment hit. I can actually take this and use it for good.
So we have clients switching to us every single day from other firms. What are they telling you that they found here that they haven't found anywhere else?
I think that, the most important thing is that they're treated like humans. So sometimes they go to their other law firms and they can't get a response to their emails or their phone calls or their text messages. Here they can jump on a call with the video call, click away. That's one major thing. They don't feel like they're being pushed or pressured into taking a lowball offer. They know the information about their case from beginning to end. They're fully informed and provided knowledge along the way.
Everyone here knows that I love tech. Now we're getting to my favorite part of this discussion. Tech is known these days to making things faceless and hiding things behind an algorithm. How are we changing that for our clients?
So our journal helps us humanize them. In personal injury, something very common is called a demand letter. So we would contact the insurance company and we would send them a demand. And we use our journal for that demand. So the insurance companies, this is how they work. You tell them that the client suffered a fractured wrist. They'll put it in the computer and that injury equals a number. That's disrespectful to our clients because it doesn't show how this injury, like I said, has impacted them, how they had to wear a wristband for 3 months, how they weren't able to brush their teeth or eat. So it helps us go ahead and pinpoint to the insurance that they're not just a number.
Can you tell us more about why even small injuries are important?
Every injury counts. Even if it only hurts a little bit, let us know. We send out automations, which will get either a text message or an email, however you prefer, to ask you how you're feeling today. And we specifically ask you, how's your wrist? How's your back? How is this part of your back? For example, I sit all day and sometimes I walk around and I don't realize how my back affects me until you ask me about it. We document everything and everything goes into that journal. And one of the reasons why we do this, and I talked about the settlement demand earlier, but it's also for trial. Every case is treated like trial is tomorrow.
So let's move on to something that's exciting to me. Another thing that's exciting to me, and that's cars.
Oh.
I know that you have a BMW M5.
Yes. We have a BMW M5, the E60, okay? So it's a very special part of who we are, not only because of the pure genius engineering that went into that vehicle. I don't know if you know this, but at the time it was the fastest sedan built. So that's super cool and we love that. But sometimes I need to sit behind it and know that a team went in to build something that at the time was possible, right? And that's something that we're doing now. So whenever doubt strikes and we're like, this is hard, why are we doing this? This is beyond what any other law firm has built. That's amazing. I want to build what every other law firm thought wasn't possible, what the personal injury field thought, oh, that's not going to work for us. So sometimes I need to sit back in that car every now and then, not often, sit back and take it for a ride and just hear the engine roaring because it gives me inspiration to know that my team can do it.
We can geek out about cars all day, but specifically I mentioned the M5 because they had an R&D lab that actually helped to fine-tune this and create this engineering feat.
Yeah.
How does that relate to what we're doing here?
Okay, so fun story. Our head product manager is actually the guy who tuned my M5 and still tunes my M5 to this day. So tuners are super important in the car world because they see a vehicle from a different point of view, which is something that we need. It's super important because with 3D physics, we're able to identify exactly what happened in the crash and how it happened based on the impact of the vehicle. We are able to present to the jury, this is what happened when my client was sitting in that seat, in visuals, because that's how we can reach people, by showing them what our clients saw and what our client experienced during that moment.
There's also that new assembly bill that says that ADS is the driver.
Yeah, so as you know, there's like humanless car on the road now, right? Like Waymo and Google, they're putting cars without humans driving on the road. So the law is trying to catch up with technology in that sense, where New York State is trying to pass a bill to identify who has the liability in that case, right? Is it the person who created the vehicle? Is it the data in the vehicle? Is it the systems in the vehicle? There's a lot of points that they're trying to figure out. But we're trying to get ahead of this game. So it's important for us to go ahead and issue spoliation letters to obtain that data and tell them you can't throw this data out because we're going to need it in the event of an accident. Our team is more equipped and they're able to identify the data, the hardware, any system failure that happened at the time, because we have these tuners on our team as well as other auto geeks out there.
The law firm of the future is a tech firm.
Yes.
So if a driverless car hits a pedestrian in the Heights today, how do you find the truth?
Data technology, right? So there's sensors, there's LiDAR, there's all this information that the vehicles give us that we can use to create digital twins in front of a courtroom. And because we're a tech firm and a law firm at the same time, we can use the law that they're creating with the data of the vehicle to identify who was at fault and how that vehicle made a mistake.
I want to bring it back to community for a second. We can say we're building these apps, we can say we're doing these things in the office and in our labs, but what have you been doing recently to kind of be out there yourself in the community? What's the last thing you can think of?
I mean, I think I spend more time outside than I do inside the office. The other day I spent a whole day and time just flew by, but I was talking at our local church, which I go to often, and people just walk in and out and with all these questions, and you just spend a day talking, you don't realize, hey, it's already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was talking to this girl and I tried to explain to her that she no longer had to be me. She no longer had to be the translator for her parents. She was so young because 1, I spoke Spanish, but 2, because our legal technology was changing. She could just show her parents a phone and let them be guided by the information that would be found on our portals. She no longer had to translate words for them because we spoke her language. I spoke Spanish just like her parents did. And these were educated individuals, so they know how to read, they know how to maneuver themselves in their language. So our technology is helping to make sure that I'm the last generation that is translating for our parents when it comes to the law.
So making it full circle here, you're thinking of all the moments that you had to go through as a young girl, helping your mother, not being able to experience the experiences you're going through, these traumatic experiences, and worrying about 2 different things, and you figured out a way to change it in the present.
Yes, there's no longer that language barrier because we're taking that wall down.
Okay, so if there was one last line that you want people to know and to sit with, what would that be?
We aren't just building a law firm. We're disrupting an industry because getting injured is hard, but getting legal help doesn't have to be.
Perfect. Thank you. I told you we'd take it from the early years to the present.
It took a while, but we got there. Thank you for this.
I'm excited.
Same. I'm excited for our people.